Today is Wednesday, September 12th, 2018. This is Roland Martin Unfiltered. We're broadcasting live from the Washington Convention Center here in Washington, D.C., where the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation ALC 2018 is taking place. Things kicked off today. Over the next hour, we'll talk about, of course, the session that took place of black women, talking about black women in politics, covering a wide variety of issues. An annual report that is released by National Coalition of Black Civic Participation, as well as Essence Magazine. We'll have that for you. Plus, we talked to Congressman Andre Carson of Indianapolis, Tamika Mallory, the co-organizer of the Women's March, as well as Nina Turner, of course, who's leading our revolution. All of those voices you'll hear from over the next hour. And I got a few words to say to Donald Trump about how glorious things went for him in Puerto Rico. It's a commentary you don't want to miss. Folks, it's time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Place when folks go to the polls all across the country. Every House member will be up for re-election in November, but also a number of critical Senate races taking place. But it's not just national elections. You also have state elections, county elections, DAs will be on the ballot. And so the question is, what will black voters do? How important is this? What we've seen take place, frankly, over this year are African Americans saying they're not waiting for a party, not waiting for candidates, really folks organizing and mobilizing themselves because they understand in the age of Trump how critical this midterm election is. If you think back to 2010, 2014, there was a huge drop-off in folks voting than who voted for President Barack Obama in 2008 and 2012. African Americans want to make sure that never happens again. So you're seeing a level of energy you have not seen in quite some time. This really is not even a question of Democrats or Republicans, even though there's a lot more enthusiasm on the Democrat side than you see on the Republican side. And so who is going to be a critical voting bloc? Black women. In 2016, 94% of black women voted for Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump. 85% of black men voted for Hillary Clinton. That was a 9-point gap that existed between black men and black women when it came to voting for Hillary Clinton. We saw what happened in Alabama, where Doug Jones upset Roy Moore there. Again, black women made a huge difference, folks who were on the ground mobilizing, but you had African-American men voting as well. And so what we're seeing all across the country is tremendous grassroots organic energy taking place where African-Americans are saying we're in control of our own destiny. Here today at the Convention Center, just a few hours ago, a group of black women met. There's an annual report that is released between the National Coalition of Black Civic Participation and Essence Magazine that details the thoughts and perspectives of black women. We're going to talk about that particular report with Melanie Campbell, of course, who is over the organization. But first, Avis Jones-DeWeaver, you often see her on our show. She gave a presentation about the report earlier today. We wanted you to actually see that. So here is Ava's presentation a little bit earlier.
Black women are really the decision makers. We are the deciders of the political future of this nation. We've shown our power over and over again, as was referenced with Alabama, as was referenced with Ayanna Pressley, and so many other examples, and we will continue to do so. And that's why we're so excited to continue our partnership with Essence Magazine to really be able to mind the political intentions and opinions and preferences, policy preferences of black women. This is our 4th year of doing so. And so today we're going to sort of delve a little bit deep into this year's findings as well as provide you a little bit of a comparative analysis as it relates to how our findings actually parsed out in previous years. Just to tell you a little bit about the sample is based on Essence readers. So we used an Essence panel survey. Over 500 women from across the country answered these questions and have been doing so for the past 4 years. And I'm excited to be able to share with you their political opinions. All right. I have some bullet points here that give you the sort of the longitudinal analysis, but instead of going through the bullet points, I'm going to just sort of give you the context as I show you the graphs that show you the outcomes, okay? So first, as it relates to black women as activists. Now, we know that black women have changed the world, and we continue to do so. And we do that in large part through our activism. Our survey has shown that to be the case again. We see that black women are still very active in their communities. And in fact, especially young black women are increasing their activism. We've seen a huge jump in the number of young black women who are saying they are activists as compared to last year, over a 10% jump, in fact. And so at roughly a 10% jump, in fact. And as always, our more mature sisters, we are always out there, almost 2/3 of us, active as always. Now, as it relates to how we actually have our activism sort of play out in the real world, we are active in various ways. Overall, we are community organizers. In particular, we find that we are community organizers. That's basically the main way in which we show our activism. Besides that, we're very active in our faith communities. And what I find very interesting when I look at this chart is, once again, when you disaggregate by age, we find that at every different area of activism, actually the young women are outperforming the more seasoned women, with the one exception of activism around local schools. And that makes sense because one would think that a more seasoned woman might be looking to advocate for her child who's in school at that moment, right? Now, this next one is probably, oops. I'm sorry, guys, I should have advanced the slide. There we go. Now, this next one is really, I think, probably one of the most interesting charts in this entire survey, particularly when you look at it from a longitudinal form. All right, these are the responses to a question that we asked around, how do you feel about which political party best represents your interests as a black woman? Now, over the years, we've seen these numbers shift. And in fact, last year, we saw a huge drop in the number of black women who said that the Democratic Party best represented their interests. We saw a full 11-point drop in the number of black women who said that the Democratic Party best represented their interests. Now, what's interesting with that is, given everything that we know about the importance of black women for the Democratic Party, one would think that over the course of the past year, there would be a lot of different efforts. And I happen to know there have been a lot of different efforts to try to woo black women. There could be more. And definitely, as it relates to the findings that we see from this year's survey, there definitely needs to be more. Because not only have the Democratic Party not rebounded in the minds of black women, actually, the percentage of black women who believe that the Democrats represent their interests has further slid back another point this year. And what's really interesting as well is the percentage of black women who say that the Republican Party best represents their best interests actually has gone up slightly to 2% this year, whereas in every previous year in which we've had this survey, it was steady at 1%. I think another very interesting finding from this particular chart is that fully 1 out of 5, a little bit more than 1 out of 5 black women say that no political party best represents their interest. And once again, that has increased slightly over last year. So when I take the findings in totem here, what it's telling me is that one cannot take the black woman's vote for granted. That we need not to only just focus on getting out the vote campaigns, we need to focus on persuasion campaigns. We need to make sure that black women understand why it's important to vote for a particular party. In other words, our vote needs to be earned. And actually, I think that's a good thing, all right? When we take a look at what specific issues are most important to black women, we've seen some significant shifts here over the years. In every previous year of this survey, black women had said that affordable health care was their most critical issue. This year, that fell all the way down to 4th on our list of priorities, okay? The number one issue, according to black women this year, is the rise in hate crimes and racism. And one would say, I'm not really surprised because we understand how this culture has shifted given the new leadership. We see that there is a sort of a coarseness to our culture, an extremely sort of a record level increase in terms of hate crimes in our country. And women are showing that in terms of what they feel is the most important thing that's impacting them at this moment. Secondly, is their concerns around the need for criminal justice and police reform. And thirdly, the need for gun violence and gun safety action. Now, another very interesting thing about these findings is that if you further disaggregate by age, you see some slightly different priorities. So, for example, older women are more likely than younger women to say that racism and hate crimes is the most important factor to them, whereas younger women are more likely than older women to say that criminal justice and policing reform is the most important factor to them. So, it really kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
Folks, joining us right now is Melanie Campbell, who leads the National Coalition of Black Civic Participation. So, Melanie, glad to see you here. This is the third or fourth year of the report.
Yes, yes.
And the real purpose behind it. What's the purpose behind it?
The purpose is for us to know, it's an organizing tool, really, right? It's a way also to tell our stories, but not from what we think, but what black women tell us, what they're concerned about, what their issues are. So for 4 years, with the Black Women's Roundtable, in essence, being able to partner and talk to an audience at least annually through that report, that poll, power of the sister vote poll is what we call it, to find out what issues are most important to black women, to find out what we want from the President of the United States or the Congress, what kinds of ways black women are being activists or around the community, and so it's multi-generational, which is also very multi-generational, and across the board. It's a way for us to know what to do with this. So, and now we know for black women, the shift was major from last year to this year. For 3 years.
Because last year, of course, it got the Democrats' attention when there was a 10-point drop
11 points
among African women in terms of for Democrats. And so that change, that caused Tom Perez and others to say, oh, wait, we've got to pay attention to what's going on.
And it didn't go up. It didn't go down a lot. It went down maybe 1 point, but it continued to go down. So the Democrats have to understand you got much more work to do to make sure that black women can regain our trust, and that's really, really critical.
What jumped out for you the most in this year's report?
Affordable health care for 3 years has been the number one issue. It's still an important issue, but the number one issue for black women is dealing with hate crimes and racism. Right, and the second is criminal justice and policing, right? And so you look at the social justice issues that balled up to the top, whereas before it was mixed. Some years it always has been affordable health care, but then it was education or livable wage jobs. All those issues are important, but we're living in a time that we're under siege from the top. From the White House on down, when you have the kind of level of overt racism where people are experiencing real life, that poll told us what we kind of knew, but now we know, and it now allows for us, we got 56 days as of this moment to shift the power in this country to a balance. I'm nonpartisan, but I'm just saying. Also, as someone who is a political analyst, the reality is we can shift power. Black women can do that, and we're paying attention. So this gives us a roadmap on what kind of messages black women want to hear about. Right?
Did you also see from last year to this year, young black women realize they can't sit an election out? Because if you saw the numbers of young black folks, 18 to 29, after 2016, significant number of them were not interested in voting. They say, well, neither candidate is appealing to me. Some people even said, well, Hillary Clinton, she's the same as Donald Trump. Here we are almost 2 years later. People are going, oh, there clearly was a difference. And so can the report also speak to what young black women said they learned from 16 to present day?
Exactly. And young black women, there was a big jump in them seeing themselves as being active in community, like a 10-point change from last year to this year. So being active in community, seizing our power. This whole conversation was about the power of black women, right, to politically, economically, socially. But the sister who really today really touched many of, I know it touched me, was Shaclesia Clemens, who was a young sister who was dragged in Waffle House in Alabama, who was here. And we had to pause and realize this is the real-life consequences of us not being able to change these issues around criminal justice and policing reform, all those things. And so it was a real-life moment that we had to pause on. And so we had sisters in here from all walks of life, elected officials, corporate America, labor, sisters who are on the ground who took a moment, right, to come out, and we came together to share, but organize and unite, and know that we're gonna push and run to the finish line to change the power in this country, because our children's lives, our children's lives, we talk about this, are really at stake, and it's nothing to play with. And so we came here to really lift up and pull ourselves at a sister, what we say, sister power table, not just to sit around and have a dialogue and conversation, but strategize and organize.
And look, you spent many years on the ground, mobilizing and organizing, and one of the things that I think is different that I see this year than in previous years, where you have African Americans, black women and black men, who are saying we don't have time to wait until the third week in September or October 1st for a candidate or for a party to step up. You are seeing African Americans who are creating political action committees,
right, exactly,
all across the country. Just yesterday, I got a text message. The brother who was the mayor of Birmingham is creating a political action committee to drive folks to the polls. And that's the other thing that also is interesting. And look, we talk all the time about resources. Here, black folks saying, you know what? We're not waiting.
Right. Look, we had sisters in there from Collective PAC to APRI to Black Voters Matter Fund, of course, our Unity campaign. We had folks in the sisters room who were not just talking about we need to go vote, organizing, raising money, do what we need to do. We cannot wait. We're not waiting on a party to do what we need to do. So that's the other part of this. And so being able to come together and support each other and find out, okay, these are ways that we can work together. So we had that Unity 18 campaign, and thank you for been supporting that all year. We've been meeting and organizing from last year, right? And being able to make sure that that in these last 56 days, we want everybody to know they have a role to play.
Right. But the key, though, is not just 56 days. There's registration deadlines coming up.
Exactly.
And so a lot of people keep talking about vote, but if you're not registered, you can't vote.
Right. Well, tell them they can go to our unitycampaign.org site, and they can find out where they need to go. Check your registration status. Make sure, even if you've been registering for 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, check your voter registration status.
Well,
because
and the thing that I've told people is there's nothing against filling the form out again.
Exactly.
So there's no rule that say I can't do it. I mean, I do that in Texas all the time. I'll go home and I'm like, look, I don't know what y'all did between last time and this time.
Right.
So I'm going to fill it out. There you go.
Right.
And I'm not worried about it.
And especially when we don't know what other rules are going to change, because we have a Justice Department that's not about justice for our people, especially around voting rights. We know we don't have what we had in 2008 and 12. There's been so many states that have created all kinds of rules, and they could change the rules tomorrow or the day after that or the day after that, because you don't have a Justice Department that's going to do anything about it.
Right. Plus, you also don't have Section 4
and you don't have,
of the Voting Rights Act with preclearance.
Right. And our lawyers, we had lawyers in the room. We had lawyers committee. We had Kristen in the room. So we know the lawyers are doing what they need to do, but we also know that voting starts early. You're going to have people voting in the early part of September. Absentee ballots are starting. So we really are in the voting period. You know, we say November 6th, but really it's a right now moment.
Right. All right, Melanie Campbell, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
And thank you so much, Roland.
All right, thanks a bunch, folks. Earlier today at New Bethel Church here in Washington, D.C., the Women's March, they held a discussion there to get young folks and individuals who traditionally aren't a part of the voting process, had them there as well. And so we caught up with Congressman Andre Carson from Indianapolis, who shared with us, again, the importance of voting to change public policy in America. So, Congressman Carson, every year you host a hip-hop think tank here at CBC. We know from the last election, young folks 18 to 29, a significant drop-off in voting. Do you believe that after the 2016 election and all things that we've seen, the young folks realize that they're going to have to be very much engaged and go to the polls for the midterms?
I sure hope so. Roland, you know these numbers better than I do. Political scientists tell us that millennials tend to be an unreliable voting bloc. They only participate in presidential elections because the attention is there. I think now what we're seeing through the movements of Bernie, through the movements of other people, media outlets like yours, educating younger people about the importance of getting out to vote. So I think that this disillusionment can be captured in a real way by a society that's more informed about the political process. That's why your efforts are so critically important. We're going to miss you this year.
Well, one of the things that jumps out, and I wish I was there, but I got to go to L.A. for a speech. But one of the things that, when you talk about that, what we're seeing is the likes of Latasha Brown, DeWanna Watson, Adrian Shropshire, Collective Pack, who are really engaging folks and saying, you know what, we're not going to wait on campaigns to begin to mobilize folks. We're going to do it ourselves, and we're seeing that level of traction.
Absolutely. I'm seeing more and more young people wanting to run for office, wanting to do white papers for politicians. I'm seeing more and more voices like Tamika Mallory. I'm seeing Linda Sarsours. I'm seeing these young voices in the women's movement saying, hey, we're going to highlight the formerly incarcerated community, give them a voice, and let the other community know that just because you've been incarcerated or have been arrested doesn't mean you can't vote. And so I think that the way this movement works is that we have to dispel some of these notions and mythologies. There's no secret Illuminati controlling the government. We're the government of the people, by the people, for the people, and we have to take charge. Destiny's at our hand.
And one of the things that also I think has been very interesting is you had this, folks are talking about folks who are challenging incumbents. We saw this with Ayanna Pressley in Massachusetts. We saw this with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And the point that I keep telling everybody is, first of all, if you're an incumbent, first of all, you're there by virtue of the people. It's not a seat that you own. And so, frankly, if somebody wants to run against you, look, you run against him, put your record up against him. When Al Lawson ran against Alvin Brown in Florida. He beat him. It was a tough race, but that's what happens when you're running.
The first race I ever ran for was school board race. I lost. I was embarrassed. Every time I run, Roland, I have about 4 or 5 candidates who run against me, and I encourage that kind of activity. This is a democracy. No one owns these seats, congressional seats, council seats. It's about the people, and I think that the best term limits are elections. So if you're dissatisfied with your representative, vote them out. If you have somebody who's consistently there on your side, you may not agree with them 80% of the time, 90% of the time. If you agree with them 70% of the time, that's pretty good. But I think that we have to hold our elected officials more accountable. Sometimes people come to our churches, mosques, synagogues, they make promises, and then we put them in the office, Roland, and they vote against our interests. We can no longer have that. Society has changed.
All right. Always good seeing you.
Thank you, boss.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Clean.
Also at that discussion today was Nina Turner. Of course, she's the former state senator in Ohio, former city councilwoman out of Ohio as well, who now leads Our Revolution, the group organized by Senator Bernie Sanders. We had a chance to catch up with her as well, and she emphasized the importance of black media and African Americans being able to tell our story to get the word out when it comes to voting. Nina, one of the things that I find to be interesting this year is that black folks said, we're not waiting on candidates. We're not waiting on party. We're going to mobilize, organize ourselves, and raise our money ourselves.
Amen. That's the way it should be. We shouldn't wait on anybody. We can't depend on other folks to give us freedom. That's never happened for any people, but especially African-American people in this country. We've always been the lead on our own freedom. So the type of political freedom that we're looking for, that liberation, if you will, in the 21st century has to come by our hand.
One of the other things is that when I think about Alabama, everybody talked about the role that black women played, but I kept trying to explain to people that, yes, that was important, but were it not for black media spaces, putting those folks on the air, giving them oxygen, I said it didn't happen because mainstream media will call you after somebody wins, not while you're trying to actually make it happen.
That's right. And the African-American community, we've kind of lost sight of why black media is so important. The black newspaper, black media just in general, but I'm just talking about the black newspaper because that's how our journey started as a people. But nobody else is going to tell our story quite in the same way that we tell our story. You are absolutely right. I mean, from Gillum to Abrams to Jealous, it was us that believed that they had more than a fighting chance. And it was only after they came out of the primary for many of these folks, DNC included, that they even started looking their way. So I'm just really proud that African Americans are really exercising their own liberation. And in the words of Brother Frederick Douglass, power concedes nothing without a demand. We have to continue to make demands, and we definitely need black media, whether it's social, whether some of us have a leg in mainstream, but even in those networks that we own, that we have power, we got to make sure that we uplift and support black media.
And obviously, beyond African Americans who are running, there are also people who have agendas that are that are important to African Americans. So it's very interesting as you're seeing the type of folks who are also running across this country. When you look at teachers who are running in Oklahoma, red states in West Virginia as well, it is as if people have realized that, you know what, I sat down for a long time not realizing that I had power, and all of a sudden going, wait a minute, I can actually leverage my power even by just being a school teacher.
That's right. And the whole social, because now, bro, we don't have to wait on media. You know, there was a time where you had to wait to get on somebody's radio program or wait to be in front of somebody's camera. But social media is just that. Let us not take the media out of social. You can create your own platforms, and you don't need a whole lot of money to be able to do that. So to see, we need more.
I know, which is why I started my own digital show and network. I understand.
And congratulations to that. Yeah, you got the power and we have the technology. But, you know, God, we do need more what I would call working class people running in this race, in these races. Well, you know, people just flat out buying these offices, flat out just purchasing them. And so unless we get more grassroots, everyday people, whether they're teachers and doctors and lawyers, I'm not white collar, blue collar, no collar, we need people out there running, everyday people running for these offices. So it's so refreshing to see teachers and nurses taking back the power.
All right, folks, joining us right now is to my far right, we have Cleola Brown. She's the president of A. Philip Randolph Institute, and we have Latasha. We just call her Latasha. Okay, she been on enough. Y'all know her enough. Black co-founder of Black Votes Matter. Y'all done heard her enough, so we just go by Latasha. How y'all doing?
We're doing good. We're fired up. We're doing good.
And so, first of all, you're actually in one place. Every time I chat with you, we're either on social media. You've been living on buses for the past few weeks. So, for the folks out there, tell them about the bus ride, the tours you've been doing all across the country, just really getting the folks about voting and really organizing and mobilizing.
So about 3 weeks ago, we launched what was called the South is Rising Tour, and we've been taking the bus to states all around the Deep South. We started in the Confederacy. We've gone to 5 states.
South.
The Deep South, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, Tennessee. Actually, I just got off the bus to Tennessee, and we're going back to Mississippi and Alabama again. And we've been going throughout the South in rural communities and urban communities to really help get the word out. And people are responding. We're connecting with grassroots groups and organizations on the ground. We're doing rallies. We're meeting in barbershops and beauty salons and churches. We're having discussions, forums, town hall meetings. We're doing it the way that it works in our community, wherever we're needed to go connect with our people. So the South is rising.
And what kind of reaction have you been receiving?
You know, people have really been, it's actually been really amazing. We've got this, on our bus, we've got this beautiful black bus. I call it the blackest bus in America. And we went down to Randolph County a couple of weeks ago. We were down in Randolph County, which was a county in Georgia where they were anticipating this election board made a recommendation to shut down the polling places,
right.
75% of polling places.
7 out of 9 polling places in that county.
And what wound up happening as we were walking out, after the rally, we had a rally, and after we were walking out, there was an older woman, an elder who was walking with me, and she looked up and she saw the bus and she saw Black Voters Matter. And she said, "Baby, does that bus say Black Voters Matter?" I said, "Yes, ma'am, because we do." And she literally started crying. And I knew why she had started crying. And I can name at least 3 other times where people have done that. There have been kids, a little child in Tennessee. We were in Memphis the other day. There was a group of boys about 10 years old that came up and said, "We want to see the bus." And one of the little boys, now I don't know if he quite telling the truth, but he was like, "I've been on this bus before. These are folks, they want you to do right. They want you to grow up and be something." I said, "You know what, baby? You sure are right." And so all of the other boys were like, "Oh, you got on this bus?" And they got on it. People have been excited, and I think part of them excited is not because it's a bus. We've seen buses before, but this is the people's bus. It has a message around that our people, affirmative message, that we have power, that we can vote, that actually us getting together is more than voting. It's really about us building power. So everywhere we've been going, because we are not going to folks just extracting, asking them, to do something, we're talking to folks. We're asking them, what do you think? What are you feeling? What's happening in this community? And that's really resonating with folks.
Cleola, you've been a long time working with the NAACP as well, in addition to A. Philip Randolph Institute. And one of the things that I think, which is the most underappreciated aspect of the Black Freedom Movement was citizenship education. So the stuff that Dorothy Cotton did with the SCLC, the stuff that you had to go through training before you went out in the field with the Freedom Riders, the stuff that Jim Lawson was doing as well, and so that has been interesting to me, seeing people to understand teaching and not just saying you got to vote, but walking people through and connecting the dots as to why they should be voting for school board and county commissioner and city and DA and judges.
Well, you're absolutely right, Roland, because that's the legacy and the history that has gotten us to where we are right now. And a part of it is doing the same things that worked in the beginning and not trying to recreate the wheel. Bill Lucy says a lot of times that a lot of fish have been fried and chickens have died in the name of organization, and he's absolutely right, because that's what we do.
And for folks at home, Bill Lucy, a longtime labor leader, we talked to him in Memphis for MLK 50, so she's just throwing names out there
Right.
like we know.
Right. Well, you got to know your history, baby.
Yes.
You got to know that history. Now, a part of that is making sure that when you teach folks about stuff, they take ownership in it. So we don't just tell them you got to vote, because the first thing that comes out, especially our young folks, is what's it going to do for me? Nothing's working right now. But understanding that the battles that had gone on are still present to be fought again and again and again. And under this present administration, I don't think that you have to open up the curtains too far to see that those bad conditions really still do exist. So we do a 1-week training session every August, but we do at our 32 states, 129 chapter locations, a training all year long. Why it's important that people learn how to vote, how they play a role in the voting that takes place, so that they don't get disenfranchised when they walk up to the polls, because states like Ohio decide to purge the vote and take your rights away before you even get there, or say that if you have not voted, you don't have a right to vote because you waited a year or 4 years. We took him to the Supreme Court and was named in the hearing. It was Ohio versus the A. Philip Randolph Institute. We ain't scared. We're going to fight for this. We're going to fight for the vote that we have a right to have.
Latasha, we talk about mobilizing and organizing, but we were also seeing Black folks who are saying we've got to fund our freedom.
That's right.
I talk about this. One of the reasons we created this platform is because when Doug Jones was running in Alabama, and now even though mainstream media was blowing y'all phone up after the election, people don't realize it was hard to get the message on before. I remember when Rose called me, we put her on News One Now. When DeWanna called, put her on News One Now, had you on, Tom Joyner as well. So without our platforms, they'll call us after the victory, but not when you're trying to achieve a victory.
I mean, I really want to say this, and I sincerely say this, that you were fantastic for us. We needed to get our message out and connect to our people, and having this platform is priceless for us, because part of the way that we're going to do this work is that it has to be grassroots, people connecting and getting the information. So even some of the communities, you and Mark Thompson are really like having those platforms and having folks that we can get our stories to, really makes a difference, because everybody doesn't know that there's a bus. Everybody doesn't know that there's a Black organization that's actually moving resources to the ground. We've moved almost $500,000 to Black grassroots groups on the ground. We're actually connecting with people even after we've been on your show, or even you tweeted us. It's made a difference where people have called and said they want to help. So unequivocally, we need these outlets and we need these platforms, because it provides an opportunity for our folks to get the message directly from us, from our perspective, and it helps us to share the word.
But you made the point about also funding those groups, and we've seen this in the past where Black grassroots organizations were being starved of funds, and you're going up to election day saying, look, y'all, 50,000 can make a difference, 100,000 can make a difference. You have campaigns sitting on millions of dollars. Then all of a sudden when they lose, it's kind of like, yeah, we tried to tell you. What I keep getting, Black folks are like, because literally I just got a text the other day, the mayor of Birmingham is launching his own political action committee. Black folks are saying, hold up, y'all got PACs? Well, hell, we going to start one too. What Collective PAC has been doing as well. People now realizing that, yes, your $5, your $7, your $10, your $20
makes a difference,
begins to add up.
Absolutely. If we're serious about power, who we think gonna pay for power for us? right? Half the time we're fighting against folks who don't want us to have power. If we're really serious about power, we need to be able to get our message out. We need platforms like your platform supported.
Absolutely.
We need PAC supported. We need to be sending money to candidates. We need to be sending money to organizations like the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation. Ain't nobody going to look out for us like us. So it's really important for us to really understand that if we're really serious about power, we got to pay. We've got to actually invest in our own power, and then that investment pays off.
And Cleola, obviously, for folks who don't know, I mean, one of the reasons why the Pullman Porters were so powerful is they funded the work of A. Philip Randolph.
Absolutely.
One of the things that the conversations I've had with Divine Nine fraternities and sororities is that when they have their conventions, they're not asking corporate America to fund them because members are funding them. We have to fund our freedom.
You're absolutely correct. And our chapters raise monies. That's why I injected Bill Lucy in the piece. Our chapters raise money to be able to do what they do. We don't wait for anyone to give it to us. We'll take everything you give us. Now, don't get me wrong. But we don't wait in order to implement the programs that will empower our communities for those dollars to come to people who are selective. And they're always late. They come to you at the last minute and expect for you to work a miracle with the little bit that they give. But we know that we know how to get it done. We tied in church.
Absolutely.
You know?
The last thing for both of you. So about 45 seconds each. Somebody's watching this live stream. They're on Facebook. They're on YouTube. They're on Periscope. And they're saying, okay, all right, I'm hearing all this sort of stuff, but I really just don't believe my vote really makes a difference. Clay, I'll start with you.
Okay.
What will you tell them?
Take a look at what the differences are already. When you start to see the changes that are being made with people like an Andrew Gilliam coming out of Florida, Rattler, out of Tallahassee, as a matter of fact, gay rattlers, taking a look around the countries at the names of the black candidates who were wonderful in the midterms, but who are going to kick butt in the final election. If you don't show up to support them, then you don't have anything to say, but your vote can make a difference. Some folks have been elected on as little as 100,000 or as little as 100. Every single vote counts, and you are important enough to make a deal on your future, on your children's future.
Natasha?
And, you know, we hear it oftentimes when we're outside and people are saying, I don't know if my vote matters. I don't feel like it counts. Let me be honest with you. I felt that way. I have voted in elections and been frustrated and felt that same way. And what we say is we've got to start that's why our conversation is not just about voting. Our conversation is really about building power. And we're seeing that we've got to use, when you're trying to build power and change your community, you've got to use every single tool that's available to you, right? And we see voting as one of those tools. That's not the all, is not the be all, is not going to be the savior of all, but it's absolutely, there are people that are making decisions every day about budgets that impact us. There are people making decisions about health care. There are people that are making all kind of policy decisions about us. So at the end of the day, when you're fighting for power, you've got to use everything that is available to you. So it's not just about voting, but it is, if you're serious about having power, you've got to vote. That is one tool that we cannot afford to not use.
Natasha Brown, co-founder of Black Votes Matter. Cleola Brown, A. Philip Randolph Institute. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you
very much,
Thank you.
Folks, I appreciate it. One of the folks out there, of course, who has been working hard when it comes to organizing and mobilizing is Tamika Mallory, one of the co-organizers of the Women's March earlier today at New Bethel Church here in D.C. We caught up with her and what she talked about, the importance of engaging people who are not in the mainstream, people who are formerly incarcerated, to let them know that they have a role to play when it comes to public policy as well as elections. Tamika, everybody's talking about voting, but I keep reminding people you got to be registered first. So registration deadlines are coming up, and I'm like, don't ignore those October deadlines if you only focus on November.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why we're doing this event right now. We know National Voter Registration Day is coming up towards the end of September, and as you said, October, we know a lot of deadlines will be here, so we're getting people mobilized. We're not waiting. We're not waiting on people, we're not waiting on the Democratic Party or anyone else to give us the resources. We're hitting the ground in our own communities. And today we have a group of people coming together who are often sort of the silent folks in this process, people who are formerly incarcerated, people who are advocates of the formerly incarcerated community, our gun violence prevention community. We're trying to bring them into the fold.
Also, I think it's important, as when I was at the NAACP, when we were there, I made the point that you have to get people to use different language when it comes to voting. And so I tell folks, I said, if you keep saying, well, somebody died for your right to vote, I said, that doesn't resonate. But if you tell somebody, you got to vote because Trayvon can't. You got to vote because Rakia Boyd can't, Laquan McDonald can't, Eric Garner can't. That captures people, I think, in a different way where it's like, hold up, wait a minute, you're right. And so it pushes them to think about voting in a different way.
Right, and even to take it a little further with just this formerly incarcerated group, there are some people here who do not have their voting rights because of whatever state they're in, and we're telling them you can't stay home. No, you need to get somebody to vote for you.
Or you can drive people to the polls. You can still do stuff.
That's right. You absolutely can get your family members, people who may not be registered, get them to register. Explain to them your issues and what it is that you're dealing with. We know in Florida, on the ballot initiative, this year we're dealing with restoring formerly people who have federal records their voting rights, and we want to make sure that that is national, that it becomes a federal regulation for people to have their voting rights restored. And that's why we're bringing people together under this. We don't, again, want to wait, and we want to make sure that people understand the importance of the midterm elections, because everyone is caught up in what's going to happen in 2020. We have 2018, and in fact, there's a primary happening in New York City tomorrow that people need to be out there. They need to be voting. So we're not waiting on anybody to tell us when. We're pushing our people right now.
All right, folks. Glad to have a great conversation with Tamika Mallard. Always good to see her in terms of the work that she's doing as well. And so joining us right now is, to my far right, Sheila Tyson. She's with the Alabama Coalition of Black Civic Participation, and also DeWanna Thompson with Woke Vote. And so, DeWanna, I'll start with you. I was just talking to Latasha there, and we were talking before we came on, and so when they had the election in Alabama, I get this phone call, and actor Don Cheadle, he said, Roland, man, he said, you got to get to Alabama. We got to be organizing our people. And I was like, okay, Don, I'm actually in 2 other cities this weekend.
Right.
I can't do it. He was like, well, man, I can't get down there. I was like, okay, here's somebody who you need to call. Yeah. And so, because we had done the story, and so y'all didn't understand. So I called DeWanna. I was like, DeWanna, look, Don Cheadle's going to call you. It's not a prank. Okay, don't hang the phone up. Don't cuss him out. I'm telling you, he's going to call you. Yes. And she was like, really? I said, don't hang the phone up. Right. And he called you.
He absolutely did call me and has been activated and involved ever since. And I think that's the power of what we're doing right now is that, no matter where you are, he's in California, but he felt so connected to the work that we were doing or trying to do in Alabama. And I remember what he said to me. He was like, sis, what you all do there really literally impacts the rest of our country. I need y'all to win. And so when he would do PSAs for us, he did a live stream for us doing our events. And he told the people in Birmingham and in Montgomery and in Mobile, he was like, I need us to do this for us. And so I'm standing with you, but I need you to stand for us with this vote. And I think that's powerful. And I think that's what we have to see and do more of right now in this moment that we're in, is find the ways that we can elevate everyone's platform for that liberation that we're seeking through the vote in November.
Sheila, when we think about elections, obviously we're in a world where folks go, how much money can you raise and how many television ads can you put on? But in many ways, I've been using the phrase, this has been back to basics. Yeah. For the longest, people have said, well, look, it's bumper stickers, it's yard signs, it's actually precinct by precinct, block by block, house by house.
Right. We focus so much on money to where it's so hard to even try to get the vote out because people want money in order to do that. But if you just go with your gut feeling, how important this is and how important it will impact your children. Your children is the closest thing to you. So that's the way I look at it. You can have a great candidate with a lot of money, with all the endorsements in the world, but if they don't work, they ain't getting in. And if they get in, they ain't going to keep their seat. So you got to get out and you got to work and you got to go door to door and you actually have to be on ground looking at people in their face where they can feel you and see you and they can know that you're looking out for them.
Now, hold tight 1 second. So we were doing a show. From here, of course, from the convention center. And so it's a brother who's an artist, and he had his artwork behind us. Bruh, hey, I need you. You had free publicity. Why you take your artwork down? You need to go put your artwork back up so folk watching can see your artwork.
Yeah.
What it don't make you trying to make some money. So why don't you go put that MLK here? We saw the Obama one. Put a new one up. Get the MLK one and put it up. So when I get to the end of the show, I'm going to do a quick interview with you, but you can't make money over there talking. Let me get back to what I'm talking about. I'm just saying, you never walk away from free media, dude.
Absolutely.
All right. So
every politician knows that.
I'm just saying. So when we think about, again, trying to get people, give me a sense of how hard has it been running up against folk who I just don't get it. I'm not seeing it. I had somebody call me. I think it was in 2016. The sister was in North Carolina, and she said, "I'm sorry. I don't care about what's happening national. I'm just going to focus on local." And so, and I said, "Well, tell me the issues." And every issue she brought up, I brought back to D.C. I said, "Baby, I said, what is wrong with you? I said, she was concerned about voter ID in North Carolina. I said, you do know the Supreme Court rules on that. And you do know the person who becomes president appoints Supreme Court justices. She was so upset with the candidates without realizing that even her issues are impacted nationally.
That's right.
And even working in the communities, and if you look at it and you think about how many people that's out there, it's a lot of people out there addressing our issues. It has to come back to you, and you can remember that this is the reason why I should go out and vote. Right. We have a lot of organizations in the state of Alabama working very hard trying to get the vote out, and you have to really think about that. And it is hard to get people to go vote, but you got to keep going and keep pushing at it.
What I would say is that we're in a moment right now where people are being motivated and mobilized not just by candidates, but by the idea of building their own black power or their own voice, right? And so when you do have a great candidate like Gillum or Stacey or Councilwoman Sheila here, you have people that you can look to and you can align your passion and align why you want to have power. But when you don't have that, and we haven't had that, and a lot of people didn't feel that in 2016, it created a rift between what they knew they should do, but the fact that they didn't feel empowered to do or felt like it wasn't something that they felt they wanted to do. And I don't think we're feeling that in this moment that we're in right now. I can tell you we are in communities all over this country, particularly though in the South, where people are saying, what do I need to do? How many people do I need to register? What do I need to do to make sure that we get our voices heard? They are feeling so much more aligned with this moment because I believe that they see it as a way of building their own power and not aligning it just to a candidate.
And, women are really stepping out now. We are pushing the lead. And if you look back in history, women have always led every fight, and they have always been on the ground and in the homes and dealing with their families. You get a woman now, they'll kill you about their children and then don't mess with their man neither. So you got to understand that women, we have all the power, and we're just realizing, that we really have the power. We can put you in a seat, and we can take you out of a seat.
All right, then. Well, Sheila, Dewana, we appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. Keep out there grinding, and we'll keep providing the platform.
We appreciate you for having this platform to lift up what's happening in our communities. It's so necessary.
I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Again, folks, we're talking about, again, not just elections, not just voting, but also what happens economically. Right now I'm going to bring up Kristen Brody. She is an economist from Alabama A&M University. And so, come on, y'all got to move. Y'all got to move. Now, look, she was begging me for I want to come on television. I want to do your show. I saw her at the AKA convention. And so, come on. And I saw her here. She's like, look, I want to do your show. I'm like, okay, you better be ready. You better be ready. But before I talk to Christian, here's our quote of the day.
Human dignity is more precious than prestige. Author Claude McKay.
Come on. All right, folks. So, again, we're chatting with Kristen Brody, economist at Alabama A&M. You have Donald Trump, who keeps talking about how amazing the economy is going, how black folks have been helped enormously. And so as you begin to break it down, is that a driving force for folks in this election? Or are people saying, yeah, it's great for folks who got money on the stock market, but I'm still not seeing it or feeling it?
Yeah, African Americans really are not seeing it. The stock market is doing well and jobs are doing better, but for who, right? The people that I don't know aren't seeing more money in their pockets. They're still having problems trying to find jobs. All of the same problems still exist, and the economy is not the only thing. Folks are concerned about health care, they're concerned about education, and all of these other issues. So it's not just whether or not the stock market is doing well that matters to the African American community.
So I keep hearing jobs, 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 but are we seeing wage growth? Are we seeing people actually
Absolutely
having
not.
more money in their pockets?
No, so jobs are up, but how much money are people making? If you're still in a part-time job, then your wages have not gone up. Furthermore, you have to look at who's looking for a job. The unemployment rate only counts those who are actually looking for a job. If you've become a discouraged worker and you're no longer looking, then you don't even count in that number. So who's looking at that?
And so when we begin to examine, of course, a jobs report just came out. It's showing where unemployment is. But it's very interesting that how that is used as the barometer. And so as an economist, is that really the smartest way we should be looking at this? Or what other things should we be looking at that give us a sense of how the economy is doing?
You have to look at jobs, wages, inflation, and I think one of the big things, as I pointed out, was discouraged workers. That we really have to look at the actual number of people that don't have a job, not just those that are counted in the unemployment rate. Furthermore, are these full-time jobs? Are they part-time jobs? And also education. So are people able to get the education and the skills that they need to fill the jobs that are going to be available and that are available now?
All right, Christine Brody, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here. All right, folks. Again, so as we begin to think about 2018 midterm elections, there are a number of different issues that folks are looking at and paying attention to. And so over the next couple of days here at Congressional Black Caucus, there'll be a number of sessions covering a wide variety of issues. We'll have more, obviously, tomorrow and Friday as well. And so we're going to close our show just a little bit. But first, come on, brother. Come on here. See. Now, what's your name?
I'm Reginald Guilliamo.
Reginald Guilliamo. Where you from?
Washington, D.C.
From Washington. No, hold the microphone, bro. Hold the microphone. Hold
Washington,
the microphone.
D.C.
Okay, hold up. Now, here's the deal. I need you to hold the microphone to your chin. Now,
All right.
look, anytime you get an opportunity to get some free media,
Yes.
okay, like in the background, you always take advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You had your signs up, then you took your signs down.
thought
And
it
I
was-
was like, what is he doing
Uh-oh.
taking the signs down?
Right.
You probably going to have about 200,000 people see this video on Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope. Okay, so,
All right.
yeah, See,
Yeah.
now you see?
That's the real deal.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
the real deal.
All right,
Okay,
all right,
so
all right.
so explain your artwork in terms of how long you been doing art.
I've been doing art for about 20 years now.
Okay.
Yeah, self-taught from Washington, D.C.
Self-taught.
Self-taught artist. I just tried it and realized that I could do it and stuck with it. Yeah,
Okay.
Sure enough.
And so, what do you? So with these pieces here, what did you? I mean, how did you paint them? Is it what kind of material?
They're made out of melted wax, crayons, and found objects. I find myself in junkyards and different places where people think things are scrap, and I try to make the best out of them. But the concept came about. My grandfather was 100% blind, so everything that I do is for the visually impaired. Everything I do is like a raised texture that they could feel and figure out with the things that I use.
Okay, and so you have these pieces here. So somebody's out there, they say, man, I would love to get one of those. What do they run?
Well, they vary in prices. The Aretha Franklin piece is $2,300, and the Dr. Martin piece, that one is $1,800. That one, by the way, is made out of vinyl records, waxed crayon, newspaper clippings. And this one is Basquiat. Are you familiar with him?
Yes, I am.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, now, I haven't put a price on that one yet, so I'm hoping that someone surprises me with a nice offer, and I could thank you once again for the exposure.
So now you have a website?
I have a website and an Instagram, and
Okay.
it's ARTGILLUMO. So that's Art Guilliamo.
That's your Instagram?
Yes.
What's the website?
Website is Guilliamo.com.
Guilliamo.com.
Yes.
Spell it?
GILLUMO.
Okay. All right, then. Well, certainly good luck with it.
All right.
And all right. Glad you stuck around and were paying attention.
Absolutely.
And not trying to run to your car.
Well, thank you. All
right. I appreciate it. All right. Thanks a bunch.
Once again, thank you, sir.
I appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. So, folks, I'm going to close this thing out talking about the orange one in the Oval Office. He was talking about Puerto Rico the other day, and he called the Puerto Rico an unqualified success. An unqualified success. In fact, said he is not getting enough credit what happened in Puerto Rico. This shows how shameful and despicable this man is, to have nearly 3,000 people die in a hurricane, and he somehow calls this an unqualified success. Let's just be honest. If 3,000 white people died in a hurricane, I can guarantee you Donald Trump will not be calling this an unqualified success. Like it or not, this president has a dim view of black and brown people. Now, he and his administration hate to be called racist, hate to be called white supremacists, but this is not a question of what names you're called. We can base it based upon your actions. And to have nearly 3,000 Americans, yes, Puerto Ricans are Americans, die due to a hurricane, and to act as if somehow we could not get the proper resources there to help those folks there is actually unconscionable. We have an amazing military. We have an amazing Navy and Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, Army that somehow could have done more had you have a president who actually gave a damn. In fact, we also now, based upon the unearthing of a document, where $10 million was transferred from FEMA to ICE to be able to deport more people. Now, how much common sense does that make? Here we got a hurricane bearing down on America right now, Hurricane Florence. We got 3 other hurricanes that are developing in the Atlantic Ocean. You've got a tropical depression developing right now in the Gulf of Mexico. And we have a president who somehow believes that he should get credit for 3,000 Americans dying. Put this in context, as almost the same number of people who died on 9/11. What we have is a president who does not care about black people or brown people. And isn't it interesting that Kanye West was the one who said after Hurricane Katrina, George W. Bush doesn't like black people, yet he is walking around in his Make America Great Again hat talking about how he supports Donald Trump. This is why Kanye West is an absolute ass. And this is why I keep saying this to folks who want to give him the benefit of the doubt. To have 3,000 Americans die because of negligence from a president shows how shameful he is. Now, whether or not he gets this message, it really doesn't matter. What you should understand is that Donald Trump, 70-plus years old, rich man, poor man, whatever you want to call him, really does not care about citizens of this country. And so when you go to vote, ask yourself whether the people you're voting for, do they support a man who would call it a qualified success that 3,000 folks could be dead in a hurricane, yet for him, it was a matter of tossing paper towels when he actually hit the ground there. Donald Trump, you are shameful. You're pathetic. You are atrocious and despicable. And yes, you do not like people of color based upon what happened in Puerto Rico. I want to thank all the folks who, of course, who came on the show today. I want to thank, of course, the National Coalition of Black Civic Participation for their panel today as well. We actually live streamed the entire panel. We'll be restreaming that this weekend. Don't forget you can also support Roland Martin Unfiltered by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. It's important for us, as I keep saying, to fund our own freedom. And so we have the opportunity here to be able to do this. We're broadcasting live from here with our setup here. We could have done it in the studio, but we wanted to be able to bring these important voices that are not getting on mainstream television. You're not going to see these voices on cable news frequently or on broadcast news, which is why we must have our own platforms. As I consistently said, we've seen this historically. We saw it happen with Frederick Douglass and Ida B. Wells Barnett and Robert Abbott and A.I. Scott, of course, and Ethel Payne and Chuck Stone, Lerone Bennett, Simeon Booker, John H. Johnson. This is about us being able to tell our story. So that's one of the reasons why we launched Roland Martin Unfiltered. So please support us by watching the shows on Facebook, on YouTube, on Periscope as well. Share them with all of your followers. Somebody right now needed the information that was said today from Melody, from Latasha, from Cleola, and from the others. And so you should share these videos with them, Don't forget, the restream of the show will take place at 10 p.m., 2 a.m., 6 a.m., and 10 a.m. as well. Plus, we'll restream it twice on Saturday and Sunday. Don't forget, we also have it is an audio and a video podcast, so be sure to go to Google Play and Apple iTunes. Thank you so very much. You guys take care. Be safe. Oh, by the way, real quick here, I forgot this here. Remember that little white mayor in Louisiana who was a little upset about Colin Kaepernick and Nike? His name is Mayor Benzon. And then he said in Kenner, Louisiana, there'll be no Nike equipment. Looked like Benzon got jumped on by a whole lot of folk. He has rescinded his Nike ban. See, that's what happens when you are stuck on stupid, and then you have to be corrected. And so he got called out by the mayor of New Orleans and called out by many constituents, and so he has rescinded that ban. Don't think using your voice does not matter. I got to go, folks. Y'all take care. Holla.